From the Middle is proud to be a founding member of the Odd Pods Media Network. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America, in the middle chapters of our lives with a point of view that is somewhere in the middle. This is episode number 107. And today's podcast is a topical podcast answering the question of what are some things that you just don't understand. There are things that we feel like a lot of people know and get, and for some odd reason, we just don't. So we're going to go around the horn, talk about those things, think about those things for yourselves, and you can chime back at us when it's all over. Hope you enjoy the next hour. Let's do it.
Hit that intro music. Oh, for the love.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
So you guys, I thought it would be really fun. It's not necessarily a game, but one of my high school friends, Wendy, posted on her page last week an article on Reddit, and it was people are admitting things they genuinely don't understand. So she said, what's something you just absolutely cannot grasp? And I thought it'd be fun to go around this week because, man, I've got a ton. But I thought it would be fun if we just picked the top couple for each of us that we just, for whatever reason, we cannot seem to grasp it.
I love the article. I think we need to read the first couple off of the article to give some context.
All right, do that.
All right. So as an example, Corey's title, people admitting things they genuinely don't understand. The first one, and of course it's going to go to an ad. The first one is dry cleaning. That sounds really simple, but here are the first couple comments. This is totally due to me not looking it up, but I don't know how dry cleaning works. And then the next person says, I thought it was called dry cleaning because they had a method of cleaning where the clothes don't get wet.
That's my understanding, yeah.
And some people just went, that's not what happens? So that's the first one. The second one on the list is record players.
Oh, that's a good one.
And the first comment is, I really do not get how a needle and a record player bouncing back and forth can create such rich sound.
That's interesting to me. Like for me, like that's all analog. And like I can understand that one, but
yeah.
Does that person not have a problem with like how digital music works?
I think we all have a problem with how all this works, is what we're saying. And the third one is not shocking at all. It's just the stock market, and everyone collectively goes, "Yeah, nobody knows how."
Nobody understands that.
It's just gamble. It's legalized gambling. That's all.
That's going to be probably the funny through line as we admit some of these that are hard for us to grasp. Like how many of these could be resolved with a simple Google search?
Yeah, here's a much simpler one. The word fridge. Why does the word fridge have the letter D in it while refrigerator does not?
As far as I know, I think autocorrect has always corrected me when I've tried to spell refrigerator.
Yeah, we didn't even know it doesn't have a D because autocorrect just fixes it.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a couple.
This is going to be fun. Thanks for the idea, Wendy. This is going to be great. Who wants to start?
Well, to start, the thing is, I feel like my disclaimer is I don't know how 99% of things in the whole world work. So but this for me is some of the things that I think are obvious to most people. That feels like part of the game. Things that probably should be more obvious to most people, but are not. Like I don't think most people actually know how the stock market works. You want to buy into a company because you think they're going to do well and their value goes up because they're making good decisions. But based on what? Why is it worth more? It's worth more because they can make more and they can give you money back. I don't know. I
think the people who are actually trading know what's going on.
Yeah, but now there's apps.
I wouldn't. Well, okay, yeah. My basic understanding, and I can surely be corrected if I'm wrong, is that it's simple supply and demand. More and more people want to buy it, so the price will go up. So that less people there's a finite amount of shares available for every company. So if I start a business and I put out 10 shares of stock at $1 a piece, and exactly 10 people buy those at $1 a piece, nobody can come along and buy more. It's gone. Unless somebody comes along and says, I'll give you $5 for one of those. And then someone says, yes. And they just made $4, right? So that's the premise. But now explode that. Why is this? That's not what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
I'm over here trying to take baby steps for myself to understand this.
This isn't market watch, you know. But then you've got like futures. People are like, that's just basically gambling on what things could be worth in the future. And shorting stocks, and I don't understand any of it.
Pork bellies.
And really what I feel like this whole episode is going to be is other people realizing how dumb we are.
Yeah, I love it.
I feel like that's where we're headed, but that's fine.
Brian Regan has a really good bit on this, and if we can get away with it, we'll edit it in post. But I think that's really good context. So who wants to start?
Well, we already have. I'm going to say keeping score in bowling.
Great one. So
keeping
confusing.
score in bowling. Here's the thing. Like, I remember in gym class when I was in like elementary school, we did bowling for like a couple of weeks with like just in the gym with these really heavy foam balls and bowling pins, and then like we took a big field trip to and part of that whole experience was them teaching us. And I remember like we actually took a test on how to score in bowling. I didn't get it then. And I don't understand it now. Why can't we just count the number of pins and call
That's
it
a great
day?
question.
Yeah, just make it, you roll 10 times against 10 pins, and it's best out of 100.
And for a while, you feel like you're tracking it because there are actual numbers in the boxes, but then you put X's and slashes, and you're like, well, we're just going to carry this over to see what happens next.
Exactly. So like, obviously I know what the X means. Obviously I know what the slash means,
Right.
but I don't know why we can't put a number there right now as far as what the current score is. The current score is it's bowling score futures.
But that's where it gets confusing because now we're talking in ethereal terms. Well, there's a number out there, but we'll see what happens next to determine your score because it's like multiplying, right? So if you get strike, it keeps multiplying or exponentially.
But do you not get a number, or does it go like a couple frames and now you get a number for the one like a frame ago?
I think it's determined on the thing that happens after a strike or a spare.
Okay. So the one
I don't know. See, this is why.
Maybe this is kind of like life. Like the next decision you make could make or break your life, and nobody's supposed to understand it. Maybe
yes.
I feel like that's what it is. Where
Is this what Inception's about?
The butterfly effect?
I think so.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah. You did a great thing, but if the next thing is wrong, you're going to blow it.
All right, while we're on games, euchre.
That's actually how this whole thing kicked off.
Yeah.
You shared that article, and I shared it out, and you commented about euchre, and then I shared your comment about euchre on Twitter, and we got a response from our friends at Infectious Groove Podcast. But go ahead and say what you said.
Well,
about
mine's
euchre.
a longer story, so go ahead.
Okay, so this will come full circle. Infectious Groove Podcast, our friends in Odd Pods Media, said the same thing. Euchre, Michelle, one of the hosts of Infectious Groove, and Russ, a second host, know how to play it. Kyle, the third host of Infectious Groove, and Russ's wife do not. We've spent hours trying. Nothing works. Send help. and I replied back to them, will do, except I know not to send Corey. Which segues back to your experience with euchre.
So euchre is like one of those games where it looks fun. The people who are playing it seem to be having a blast. You need 4 people. There's usually 3, and I'm there, and they'll go, "Do you want to play?" And I'll go,
I have a secret.
There's a story here. People have tried, and every single person goes, "No. I'll explain it to you." And I'm like, "No, listen. People have tried. It doesn't stick. I'm warning you now. It doesn't stick." They're like, "Listen, I got it. I even had a kindergarten teacher, my friend Jen. She heard that I didn't know how to play. And she goes, I will talk to you as though you're a kindergartner. And she went through every step. And I was like, And she's like, where did I lose you? And I'm like, 4 steps ago. It doesn't stick. Spencer and Jenna, listeners of the show, they tried on vacation last year. That's probably the closest I've ever been. I don't know what card to play next. And I think for some of mine, that's the issue, is I'm trying to figure out the rationale behind the decision instead of just doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the difference of understanding that it works and understanding why it works. Sometimes I'm always trying to figure out the why it works instead of just play the card. You don't have to understand why. You know what I mean?
Is it like the rule that you don't understand, or like the strategy that you don't understand? So in other words, like if Trump is played and you know that you have to follow suit or whatever.
Yeah.
That like clubs was played. Clubs was played by the first person played a card. I have one club in my hand. That means I have to play that card.
Yeah, I think it's the rules.
Like,
but
do you understand that, or is it like I don't have a club, so now I can make a strategic decision, and now you don't know?
I think that's probably it. So, like Lily, my 14-year-old, was trying to explain to me, and this is another one on my list, but will help explain what I'm trying to say now. She loves trying to teach me how to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at a core level, even she doesn't know how a Rubik's Cube works, but she knows that if she wants the top row, third color to appear on this panel, she knows the algorithm required to make it get there. Because that's all a Rubik's Cube is. If it's out of order, there is an algorithm: up, left, 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 down, down, right, or whatever it is. I'm making that up. To get that square to the proper side.
Right.
She knows that, but she doesn't know like mechanically or why it gets there. She just knows that it does.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the breakdown of euchre for me. I think.
By the way, when you teed that up, like explaining it like you're 5, I immediately went to Michael Scott asking Oscar to explain a surplus. And he immediately resorts to like a lemonade stand. That's how he boils it down. And I feel like that's, honestly, it could have been a kindergartner trying to explain it to you. It doesn't matter. But it was funny. The best way to learn euchre actually is there's apps that force you to make the right move. You can't play the wrong card. So if you download an app, it forces you. Now, when you get to some of you're not following suit, so you have an opportunity to throw a card strategy, you're not going to know what to do there. But as far as when you have to throw a certain card, it forces that.
You can get the rules down at least that way.
You can at least get the basics.
And then put those behind you.
Yeah.
But if I'm just forced to make that move, I still don't know why I'm making that move. So I'm not learning. I'm just following.
Well, because the rule of the game is someone played clubs, I have to play a club if I have it.
Okay.
So I have a club, I have no choice.
Yeah. There's certain amount of you have to follow the rules, but when I'm excluded from the rules, then there's some strategy in what I'm going to play next.
I just feel bad for everybody that's tried, and I feel bad for you guys right now because I'm not.
We're still trying to fix it.
Our friends Jerry and Meg tried one night, and it was like, it's not working.
Does Sherry play?
Yeah, and loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it. We played for years in like junior high and high school at lunch or any opportunity we could. Yeah. The only downside to you not knowing is it's one less person at a family event where sometimes like a certain family member will get wrangled into playing because they have to, because we need the 4th person to make it work. And playing with 3 people is not as fun.
Yeah.
And so that's the only reason I wish you would learn, but not because...
I wish I would learn too. This isn't lack of desire. Trust me, a good social game that everybody seems to enjoy, I'm down.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stick in my brain head.
Too old at this point. It's not going to stick
gone.
now.
36. My time has passed.
Time has passed. Put him out of his misery. So I have one, and we've talked about this one before, and this will be the one that makes me seem the dumbest, I think. So I'll go with this one. So unless you're Yoda, there's a sentence structure that you have to follow. You can't say, You have to say, I got in the purple car. You can't say purple car, I got in. It just sounds wrong. It's not grammatically correct.
Yeah.
Again, unless you're Yoda, you can't get away with that. And much like a sentence has a very basic structure, a Starbucks order has a very basic structure. And my brain will not remember. It's a jumble. It's a jumble of words in my head that are kind of there if I can remember them. And they just come out. It's like mocha, hot, venti, raspberry, extra shot of raspberry. It's just that. It's just weird. And then I'll miss a word and Bree's like, you got to say this. And then I'll say that. It just won't. My brain doesn't know it. I don't know what I'm asking for. I've never had to read the menu more and feel more like a child than when I try to order coffee at Starbucks. And I'm maybe lucky enough, I might be able to recall my order from Starbucks now because I only ever order one thing because I'm so dumb about it. I can only remember the one thing. So it's like, if I'm lucky, I might remember that one thing that I try to remember every single time. But the words never come out. Now, God bless the people that work there because they still put it together. But I know that they need to hear it in a certain order to be most efficient. But they can hear it in any order to get it.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to say it in the right order, however you're supposed to say it.
Yeah, so they don't have to like stop and put it
I
together.
can't even give you an example of what the right order would be because I don't know how to do it. But do you guys know, I know, Kendall, you're not really a Starbucks person, but like, I both know an order well enough to just rattle it off in the right order?
All the men listening are going, well, when you order just a large coffee, that's all you
That's
But for those of us that order venti white raspberry mochas with it's different. Yeah, I do just because I've gone. But there are times when even the baristas will say it differently.
Maybe that's been my problem. I know I can't really blame it on them though. This is on me.
I just discovered like a year and a half ago though that there's an actual proper order for adjectives in the English language.
Yeah.
Did you know this?
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to.
You're supposed to order your adjectives?
There is a proper method, yes.
Okay.
It goes quantity or number of something, quality or opinion. Some of these don't apply, by the way.
Yeah.
Size, age, shape, color, proper adjective, often nationality, other place of origin or material, and finally purpose or qualifier.
Interesting.
The only reason I know that is because I've read where people will give examples of that using 2 or 3.
Yeah, so I was just going to do that.
And some of them just don't sound right.
Right.
Even though you don't know the order to just write what he just set out, you know when you hear it, like that's something about that doesn't feel right.
I feel like quantity going first is one that people do automatically.
I think a lot of it is what we do automatically and don't realize we're using an order that exists.
Yeah, you're right. So if I would say 3 big red trucks, I would never say 3 red big trucks.
Right. It's exactly right.
So the second rule is when there are 2 or more adjectives that are from that same group I just described, the word and is placed between them. So there's commas after each, unless you're doing 2 in a category.
Right. So 3 big red and yellow trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That makes sense.
It's fascinating.
And if you say 3 big red yellow trucks, that doesn't make sense either. You just inherently know that it's wrong.
Right.
But you don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to go down that rabbit trail, but I thought that was fascinating. I just learned that. And then if you're speaking Spanish, it's noun and then all your adjectives after that.
Which I think makes so much more sense.
Right. Tell us what it is. Then describe it.
Exactly. Like 3 big red, yellow, awesome trucks.
Yeah. I'm just waiting with bated breath.
It would be so much clearer if we could say 3 trucks, big red, yellow. Like that would be so much better. Can we all do that?
Hey, let's try it.
I'm just gonna try to.
Let's see how much reach we have. Who has another one? That was a good one, Dylan.
I don't know if I have any good ones, and I'm trying to pull from memory. We often work from a shared note where I loaded some of these.
Oh, you want some help?
My phone is recording us right now, so I don't.
You have a really good one on your list. Can I share it?
Yeah.
Since you're,
give me a keyword.
Ceiling fan direction.
Ceiling fan direction. Now this is something that I guess maybe I two things. One is I just never remember which direction is, like, there's a summertime direction and a wintertime direction, and I never know which direction it's supposed to go. And then I do a Corey. I start to think through what would make sense. So I look at the blades of the fan. I'm like, okay, so if it were on right now, the fins are like this. If this is going that way, then that's pushing air from the fan down, and so if that's warm air that's up there and it's going to push it down, then that's what I want. I think during the wintertime, because I want it to get warmer. I want air to circulate, but I want air to get warmer. But then isn't there going to be like an updraft along the walls? And when that warm air gets pushed down, isn't it just going to like rise right back up? And I don't know. I don't know if any of it makes sense.
And let me chime in there. Even your precious Google can't help you, because eventually you're going to try to find instructions and it's going to say it needs to go clockwise or counterclockwise. And you're going to go, if I'm looking up at it or if I was looking down at it.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Because then there's different directions.
I would legitimately say, like, nobody's looking down on their ceiling fan. I suppose if you were like in a loft and there were ceiling fans hanging from posts that were like lower than you were in elevation, and you're like, oh crap, no, I need to do this. I need to say that. It's like trying to screw a bolt in. That's like you're trying to screw it up and you're like on top, but you're like reaching underneath, and now you're all backwards and you don't know what's left and right anymore. It's like that.
I used to stand under it because I would look it up, and let's just solve it for everyone right here and now. Counterclockwise in summer, clockwise in winter.
Okay.
I would hear that and go, but it depends on how I'm looking at it, which side I'm looking at it from. And then I was like, no, Corey. Clockwise is always clockwise.
So is it because you're trying to take warm air that's up here and push it down from the fan that you want it to go in a certain direction in the winter? Do you know that?
The diagram doesn't really.
I picture in a diagram like you would
They
have
don't have
arrows,
red and blue arrows.
You'd have arrows crawling across the ceiling toward the ceiling
I'm just
fan
show
and
you
then
my
going
phone.
straight down. Okay. If you're not on YouTube, I'm going to narrate for you. Corey. Okay, never mind. So this is okay. In the summertime, it's pushing air. It's taking air from the outside, pulling it up and pushing air down. So it's taking cold air that's on the ground. It's bringing it up to the ceiling. So it warms up and then pushes it down, which I don't understand. I don't understand why that's preferable.
I'm tired listening to you describe it. I don't understand it.
But see, that's the issue of trying to figure out the why behind. Just do
the thing.
Yeah, winter clockwise, summer counterclockwise.
Don't worry about euchre strategy. Just learn how to play the game.
Yeah, well, some things are harder. That's a good one. That was a really good one. I saw that and laughed out loud when it was on the shared note.
I saw
I'm
you
like,
put ha-has.
Yeah, dude. All right, who's next? Oh, here's one from me. The proper order, since we're talking the proper order of things.
Yeah.
Height, width, and depth. And I asked an engineer this past week, and he goes, there's no standard. It just depends. What? He said it just depends on what it is.
Makes sense.
Are there standards for like things? If we're talking about like what's the footprint of this room?
But
is there a standard?
People mix them and match them. What? So like if you're making a cabinet versus a room versus a swimming pool versus there's no standard.
I've wondered the same thing if it's an object, like if it's a crate and it's showing me depth. Is it the depth of the crate, like for storage amount,
like
or
if
is
you were
it
to fill
depth
it with water? How much?
Or is it depth of like, well, I don't really need the depth of the width across. I need how deep is something that's a storage container going to go.
I think that's always going to be height.
I would think so, but depth makes sense.
I think depth would always be the distance from me laterally.
The engineers are yelling at us in their car.
And then the word length gets thrown in, which can be used interchangeably for width sometimes.
Yeah.
Or depth sometimes, or height sometimes.
Length can be height? Well, if you're talking, I guess, about people.
It's tricksy, hobbits.
It is.
That one confuses me because
Well,
usually there's a diagram to accompany these measurements.
Right.
But if you're just writing it down for someone and
Yeah.
you get a cabinet that you're like, why is this coming 6 feet out of the wall?
Exactly.
Well, sometimes it's really easy even if you don't have a tape measure, if you're looking at an entertainment center that's 4 feet wide by 20 inches deep by 3 feet high or 2 feet high, it's kind of easy to figure out.
Well, if you know the shape of it, you can look at the numbers and figure it out.
But I don't know why every picture, if they're going to take the time to put the dimensions in the technical specs or whatever, include one picture that shows arrows with lines that says
Yes.
with the letter like the D by it this line and the L by this line or whatever.
Well, Lego Masters Season 2 started back up, and the kids and I are going to start doing our own version of our own Lego challenges. And we were playing with bricks and organizing bricks the other day, and I said, hand me a 1x2x4. And that's the same thing. It's like, well, do you mean yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, fun.
All
Yeah,
right.
so that one confuses me.
Here's one of mine. I hope that I get a little bit of latitude on. I really don't.
Latitude or depthitude?
Oh, good Lord.
That was a good one.
I really don't know how cars or engines of anything work.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I know there is a engine. I know that. I know the engine is required as a important part of most things that include an engine, but I don't really know anything past that.
Yeah.
You put oil and gas in them. They connect to other parts of the car.
That's one of those where I just feel like a YouTube video, an animated video, pausing on the parts of a combustion engine. Like you would know at the end of 14 minutes.
It's ignorance. It's not stupidity. I'm not dumb. I could learn it. I just have never taken the time to figure out how it actually works.
That's what a lot of these are, right?
It's mostly ignorance on a lot. The Starbucks thing, I'm just an idiot. But the engine thing is that I just have never taken the time to watch like a video or a very totally explain like I'm 5 how an engine works, and I go, got it.
Yeah.
That's how.
And that's like two different worlds there too. So you have like gasoline, you have combustion engines, and then you have electric motors. They're two entirely different things. And electricity, this is one that my wife, we've talked about this before. Electricity is something that is very confusing as to I can understand basically how I can understand things about like wire gauges and why that's important and how and why breakers trip and load specs and those kinds of things. I can get all of that, but I don't know like how electricity comes from a wind turbine or how electricity comes from a coal factory. Like I don't understand how to make electricity or how that works. I don't understand how electricity can be stored somewhere. That kind of thing. And so that's when you get into like electric motors. It's like there's parts that I don't think are moving, but they're doing stuff.
Electric is the future, baby. If I'm going to watch a YouTube video at this point, it's going to be an electric engine. Show me how a Tesla works.
There you go.
Because I'm not going to go back and learn combustion now.
Maybe you can get on the front lines on how electric cars and things work, and then you can do all of your own work in the future.
Yeah, my former Ford engineer grandfather is disappointed. I'm sure that I have no idea how engines work, but no clue.
Speaking of cables.
Yeah, so cables are on my. It sounds like a boring topic, but for me, this is why it was interesting that one of the first things that was mentioned was record players, because record players are analog. I understand analog. I get that. What I don't get is digital. Anything digital cables. We have a situation right now with our audio setup for the church where we have the soundboard and all analog. I can understand how a microphone works, how a signal travels through that cable. It makes it all the way eventually to the soundboard and how the soundboard picks it up and reads it. I understand that. I get that. There's an output for that microphone and all of the other 24 channels that are on our board that all go and from analog cables out of the board, 24 separate cables out of our board, and they all go into 24 inputs on this rack-mounted box. That rack-mounted box has an Ethernet cable as an output. And all of that analog information somehow transforms into the digital world and then travels through that one Ethernet cable. Makes the link back to the stage to another box that takes that Ethernet cable and then splits that Ethernet. It's basically like a big, huge hub because it takes one Ethernet input and then it gives you like 8 outputs, Ethernet. So one of those Ethernet outputs goes to my own little mixer that's in front of me, and I can control each and every individual little channel. How does analog information all get accumulated into this one wire? And then on the other end of that wire, I can still control each and every individual signal, but there's only one cable, and I don't get it. We have a scoreboard that, like, in a gym that has score and time and foul information and a buzzer and all of that stuff. It is a stereo cable. A stereo jack plugs into the board, and a stereo jack plugs into a controller. And with that one, just a stereo cable, like you plug your stereo into anything else, like you plug in your headphones into a headphone amp.
Easy enough to understand.
Easy enough to understand. You have that cable is transporting all of that information to the scoreboard in real time. I don't get it. How many little microscopic minions are inside of this cable running back and forth playing telephone, getting this information back and forth? I don't get it, because that's how analog works, by the way, is microscopic minions.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have any insights there? You're audio technician.
I can't explain why transmitting things via light is faster, and you can send a lot more information a lot faster through a cable, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I know it does, but I don't know why. And that's essentially what like a fiber optic cable is.
Right.
It's faster, and you can put a lot more in it. It even though it's tiny, it would be like a much bigger pipe to push water through versus a much smaller pipe. You can put a lot more through it a lot more quickly. That's all I know.
But I hear like the optical cables in the home theater world are on their way out the door.
Well, I think you can do so much through an HDMI cable now, because it'll do audio and video versus the optical is just sending like the audio information.
And then that's my other point was like, don't get me started on how video can travel through cables. I have no idea. And then take away the cable entirely. You're not plugged into anything over Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that kind of. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember like first seeing commercials when I was a kid about wireless internet access, and I remember like sitting there with my sisters and scoffing, being like, that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that works. And here we are.
Yeah, I used to work for Bose, the audio company, and before I left, a good friend of mine and colleague at the time, Tom, and I would talk about, I can't even imagine going back to tell myself as a kid who grew up with VCRs and Nintendo and Sega and whatever, you're going to be able to have a computer in your hand and pick a song that it's not on a disc or it's not on a thing. You're going to pick it. It's going to travel across the world somewhere to a server and instantaneously put that music through speakers all over your house wirelessly. I mean, even still doing that now, if I don't just kick on something on Spotify and hit all the rooms, if I actually stop and think about what I'm doing, I'm still blown away by like, I'm literally picking a thing from a thing I don't own. I'm tapping it, it starts, and I hit one other thing, and now 4 different speakers across my house are all playing it simultaneously and in sync so that I can move around anywhere in the house and hear it. And my house isn't wired. There's not speaker wire running across my house. Which is just wild. Like,
yeah.
On top of the fact, as a kid, I wouldn't even have cared that much because I wouldn't have known yet. But it also would have been so far removed from anything we would have had in 10 years later, right. 15 years later. And so we would frequently have that discussion. Like, this is pretty incredible. Streaming is the same way. literally on demand, something I don't own, and I hit play, and it instantly starts a movie that is being beamed to my house from across the world from Disney's servers or Netflix's servers. It's freaking great, man.
Let's do one more tech one, and then we'll dumb it down for the rest of the episode for everybody else.
For everyone else.
Coding, especially video games. So I can start to kind of wrap my head around, you designed a character in 3D space. Mm-hmm. That character is rigged. He's given the equivalent of like a skeleton with joints and degrees of motion for each limb. And I can code it so that when I press a button, that animated character that is rigged with a skeleton does an action. But put him next to this brick, and he'll pick it up in the game based on the fact that the game knows he's standing next to that thing. That blows my mind. So, give that character an action, fine. But then all the possible scenarios that happen with light and space and objects and other online players next to him, how to make buttons, how many buttons are on the current PlayStation or Xbox controller? 8, a dozen, whatever. That with that limited subset of buttons, you can have endless possibilities for a character in 3D space. And then to have sound effects for each one, and then how hard I press it changes the type of action. So he could do a gentle kick or a...
That was a big deal when that came to controllers. Like button sensitivity was a big deal. I remember thinking that was crazy.
How many options for one button do you have to... I mean, that blows my mind. And on a much smaller scale, there's like even refrigerators now are coded to do certain things based on... I mean, that's... But yeah, coding, especially as it relates to video games, that is fascinating to me.
And my favorite part, you encounter a singular glitch in a AAA game. This Warzone update sucks. Because you found like the corner of a map and a bush like disappeared when you touched it. This game's terrible.
That's awesome. We're going to take a quick break here from one of our friends in the Odd Pods Media Network, and we'll be back with things we just cannot seem to understand.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, I'm Shannon.
I'm Jamie.
We're Married with Television, marriedwithtv.com. We are a couple of Hollywood normies on the outskirts of the film and TV industry, and we talk about our favorite TV shows, music, and movies, and sometimes they talk back to us.
Sometimes they do.
Our podcast is Married with Television, one word, on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Possibly Amazon soon. And we are a proud member of the Odd Pods Media Network.
Married with TV!
MarriedWithTV.com.
And we're back. So this is really fun. We're enjoying having a round of things we just cannot seem to understand. And it's loosely related. It's more just of a cute aside as we get into the second half of the episode. So my wife works at an office that is close to a place called Fred Astaire Dance Studio.
Okay.
And until she started going to that office a year or two ago, this entire time, she thought it was Freda Astaire.
Oh.
So her whole life, she thought when people referred to Fred Astaire, it was a female Fred Astaire. And she told me that, and I thought it was the cutest thing ever.
Like Freda. Like
Freda.
Like I'm thinking of Frau Farbissina or whatever from Austin Powers with like the buns on the head. Like when I hear Freda, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Freda Kahlo.
Freda Stare. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was cute. Anyway, not really related, but close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough to give me an excuse to tell the story. This just happened like a week or two ago, and I go, wait. This whole time, you thought it was... Anyway.
We also had a discussion the other day about American Express cards, and it was
Amex
versus Amex.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard AIM, like AIMEX, Amex.
Amex, yeah.
Versus I've always heard it and pronounced it Amex, like American Express.
If you're spelling it out, that is how you would say the A. But
Right.
I'm saying Amex because it's Amex. Amex. Use your Amex card.
And I'm fine with
Amex.
either. And
Refrigerator.
and places, as long as your Amex clears, you can call it whatever you
In
want.
the privacy of your own home, you can do it.
If you can go up to the Plaza Hotel and drop your Amex and that money goes through, they don't care what you call it.
I just want to go, hey, why aren't you accepting it? Because I started carrying one of those around, and not every place does. And I only carry one card.
They
Yeah.
take more of a percent of the transaction than Visa or MasterCard. I think actually American Express is 10% versus I think Visa and MasterCard are 6 or 7.
Well, I don't like being inconvenienced, and I don't like places not accepting it.
That's why I don't think most people think about the fact that that's why places will say for a really small purchase, you have to spend at least whatever, because the vendor, Visa or MasterCard or whoever, is taking 6, 7, up to 10%, I think for Amex, of the transaction. So if you're spending $1 and they're going to lose 10 cents on the dollar for the transaction, and that's why places also want to return things to the same card typically, because if it's not returned to the same card, they're taking another percent to return it to a different card.
Yep.
So if you buy something at $100 and with an Amex and you want to return it to a different card, they've lost not only the sale, but $20 in the transaction.
Hey, we just achieved another one. Why do places not always take
pretty
Amex?
much everywhere. Well, yeah, pretty much everyone could take it if they wanted. They just don't want to. And pretty much any place could return things to a different card than the one you used to purchase it, but they don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that simple. And I tell you what, they all have a contract with a merchant or with the credit card company themselves. And I guarantee you in those contracts, they're told you will not have a minimum amount to use or to take our credit card transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And the credit card companies will drop a retailer for finding out they're doing that.
Yeah.
So
Fortunately, I typically only see that at places where you can kind of empathize. It'll be like a completely rural gas station. It's
Sure.
the only business within 15 miles, and it's like, please spend at least $5. Where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll buy a couple sodas and some candy bars because I get it.
I only say that because I worked at a place that was threatened once, and we had a minimum, and then magically we didn't anymore, and it was because we were told, hey, we're not going to let you accept Visa anymore if you keep doing that.
Yeah, I can't order Starbucks, but I know about merchant services, so here we go.
Speaking of food, we've joked about this on the podcast before. It's becoming like a campy joke at this point. Like McDonald's ice cream machines not working.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might be close to getting a franchise owner on the show. So my daughter Chloe said that on the job fair, not job fair, when you bring your parent to work, tell the kids what you do for a job. What is that called? Doesn't matter. This one classmate's grandparents own like a handful of McDonald's restaurants.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, sweet. I need this girl's name, Chloe, because I need her grandparents' contact information.
Yes.
Here's another call. If you know anyone that owns a McDonald's franchise and can shed some light on why the heck these ice cream machines don't seem to be working.
We will be friendly.
Yeah.
We will be all of the good things.
We're not trying to...
But we do want to talk about that.
We will not use accusatory language. We will ask politely, like, help me understand why you will never freaking sell me ice cream.
It's like when Michael's in the office and he wants to finally tell Toby all the things he's always wanted to tell him. And he's like, what gives you the right?
What gives you the right? Yeah. We're going to have to start sharing more clips from The Office on our social media pages. Anyways,
Yeah. Kendall, do you have any food
I would
ones?
love that. I'd love if we had them on.
So, spoiled foods, something that I don't get. I can't. So, people tell me to like open something and smell it,
Mm-hmm.
and I do, and I'm like, I've never smelled ham before, so like lunch meat before. I don't know if it smells like, what is it supposed to smell like? Is it one of those things where it's like, I'll just know, but isn't there a spectrum where it's like, I'm not sure? but maybe like wouldn't that occur? And if so, like I don't know what that is. So I don't like if it's. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if it was like 6 years old and it was opened 6 years ago and it was lunch meat, I would be able to smell it for sure and say, yeah, that does not smell right. But I mean, like a few weeks and I smell it. I'm like, I don't know. What did it smell like before? I wish I had a way to like save a smell memory in my phone. So that way, like when I first buy it and open it, I'll like take a smell snapshot of it, and then I can compare in 2 weeks. But I don't know. And this is why I think we've talked about before. Like I am strict about like expiration dates in our house for this very reason, because of my ignorance in the world of smelling to find out if it went bad, because I don't know and I don't trust myself. And it's like that man card conversation. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to do it myself. I want someone to stamp a date on there for me.
Yeah. You don't like the Wild West that is the sell by date or the best by date.
I hate the best.
Wild West. It's the Wild West, baby. You
Sell
want
by
to firm.
dates?
You want to eat it or chuck it by this day.
There's nothing more frustrating than a sell by date or a best by date. I want to know an expiration date. Give me the date and time that this thing has become dangerous to feed my children. That is the information I need from you.
I think there's something to the spectrum idea, though. Here's an example. For those not watching on YouTube, I'm sitting about 12 feet away from Kendall. Let's say that I had a cold and I sneezed. That's a lot different than if my nose was touching Kendall's nose and I sneezed. Your body is going to be able to fight off the germies from 12 feet away at that much smaller scale than if I sneezed into your mouth. And the amount of bacteria per snottle or per spittle or whatever it is was way higher. And I think that's what happens with like mold and fungus and bacteria in your food. If it's like there's barely anything because it's barely past the expiration and you can't even smell anything weird or see anything weird, I always just think your body can fight that off. That's fine. But I think if it's like layered in green and white cheese, I don't know how much your body can fight that off.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
You're on a roll. This is why one of the reasons I love you. Off the cuff, you just said the Wild West that is the sell by date. Then you said, I need an eat it or chuck it. And then you said snottle. All in that rant. That was gold.
Sneezing into mouths and
so I
wanted to paint a very clear picture.
And you did.
Of what I mean by spectrum.
Yeah. And with some meats and cheeses, it's hard, right? Because like you get a roast beef that is well within its, expiration date and it's got a little funk on it. And you're like, well, maybe that's just, not literal funk on it. Just the smell has a little tinge to it. Some roast beefs or some cheeses. But we've all approached a 3/4 full gallon of milk that is right at its expiration date. And you take off the cap and smell it, and you get a little bit of that sour smell, but you're like, there's 3/4 of this milk yet. It has to be good in there. Maybe the little sourness I'm smelling is just right. The dried crusties right at the top of the rim that I'm smelling. This whole 3/4 of the thing couldn't have gone back. In your mind, you're like, the outer milk protected the inner milk. And so it's got to still be good.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I realized is a legitimate barrier
mix it up
for people with trying to figure out what's good or not. Most people that are normal, I think, eat the final evolution of a food. Like they put meat and pickles and condiments and all the bread together and take a bite and go, maybe something's off here. I will frequently eat the components as I'm putting them together. So I have a really strong idea of what a slice of turkey, both sliminess or lack thereof, and taste should be like. Because if I'm making a sandwich, I'll throw like a slice of it in my mouth while I'm eating.
Yeah.
Or I'll eat some pickle, or, I'll take a bite of bread or a roll or something like that and eat one of those while I'm making it. And I think a lot of people don't do that. Something might be off by the end, but then at that point, they don't know what it is. And it just feels like the whole sandwich has to go.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
This
Do
is
you
crazy.
eat like a slice of turkey while you're making a sandwich or a slice of cheese
Yes.
while you're, I think that helped. I think you have more of a point of reference of something about that cheese tasted a little sour.
So the cheese, I don't. I feel like for me, I feel like cheese is always something that you see and not smell. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's in my world. And but meat, I do taste. I do taste meat.
And that's why they tell chefs to taste as you go, right? Because you don't want to spoil a whole dish. If an
Or if
ingredient,
you've over seasoned or under seasoned,
Right.
bad components make up a bad,
Did
final
I
dish.
mention last week about how I found blue cheese that had gone bad?
yeah,
Isn't
Yeah.
it already?
wet brown. We talked about wet
Isn't it
brown.
already
wet
gross?
brown. I love blue cheese, but it is like Anyway, I already talked about it last week, but it can go bad because there's molds that aren't edible that grows on even blue cheese. But there was a party one time where my wife and I, neither one of us are wine drinkers, but we had this bottle of wine in the house and we served it to people, and we're sitting there like with our wine glasses drinking it. Next thing we know, people are telling us this wine has gone bad, and we were drinking it. Like Amy and I were like,
Isn't that the point?
no idea. I did not know that this was bad wine.
Weren't they grapes that went bad?
That's what I thought, but apparently no, it goes bad. Like it I guess it crosses a line and turns into vinegar eventually. But so we were giving people spoiled wine and we had no clue.
That's interesting.
I feel like I just saw an article about the oldest bottle of wine that's still partially liquid. It's like 500 or 600 years old. Because after so long, obviously something would break or it would just harden, apparently. I don't know. But I was thinking it looked dreadful in the picture, but I was thinking, isn't that like, don't people want wine? I know part of it is though the temperature of the room that it's in, and I think that's part of it. But if it was in a wine cellar for hundreds of years, isn't that desirable?
I think it's vintages that they're looking for. They're looking for particular years, and sometimes those years were a long time ago.
Well, I understand
I
that.
could be wrong, but
I understand that there's better years. It's like cars. There's better years of cars than others. But like if it still runs, it's still a car. If the wine is older but not a good year, quote, wouldn't it still be drinkable? But it wasn't the best harvest of that decade or whatever.
it changes over time. Apparently.
I don't know.
So
I would need a wine expert to tell me how a wine goes bad.
I don't know.
Apparently,
I don't
it
know.
would be vinegar. It tastes like vinegar, is what you're saying.
I guess.
I don't
I
know.
guess. And again, it probably exists on a spectrum. Like there's probably like this wine is great for consumption, and then you take it like too far, and then eventually it's like, all right, this is like drinking vinegar.
Full snottle wine.
Yes,
That's what you're saying.
and somewhere in between is when you got to like take it out of the rotation or just start using it for cooking.
Take your word for it. I have no idea.
I don't either. I'm just reporting what I've heard from other people who drink wine.
And if you're just tuning in for some reason, these are things we don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
When is wine good, not good enough, and too good?
And like beers have a shelf life too. Like
Right.
but that's a similar. I mean, it's fermentation, and
I've seen beers go stale and skunky. So like sunlight does funny things to beer.
but if it's cold, in a fridge or a refrigerator,
Yeah. I don't know
depending
exactly
on if there's a
what's-
D or not.
Get that D out of there. Ooh.
Interesting.
That's-
Do you have any about vegetables?
Thank you for feeding me. So vegetable gardening is one that I also don't understand, and that's just that's just more of a lament because my wife and I have been vegetable gardening now for like I don't know 4 or 5 years. Maybe it's not been that long, but like the very first year we did it, things were so awesome. Everything went so great. We had all kinds of stuff like to harvest throughout the summer. And then since then, we've been trying to figure out what we're doing wrong.
Because things aren't growing.
Things aren't growing, not nearly as well as they did that first year. And some years, like we'll have a couple of vegetables that do really well, but then like the tomatoes will do awesome, but the peppers are doing horribly. Why is that? And the next year you might have like the inverse of that problem. And
Yeah, like at family gatherings, you'll hear people go, "How are your tomatoes doing this year?" "Oh, mine are terrible." Same here.
yeah. So I don't.
Is it like a regional thing?
No,
Or is it
I don't
something
think
you're
so.
doing in
I
your
think it's
garden?
something we're doing, but I don't know what because I've tried. I've tried all kinds of things like we composting and different types of feeding and topsoiling, and I've gone so far as last year was when I was like, all right, I'm going to do all the research I can about watering, and changed the way I watered. Everything that I read was like, well, a very common problem is overwatering. And so like I read all kinds of things about how to check your soil. And so like every day I'm going out there with a little spade tool and I'm checking like 6 inches deep in the beds, in the vegetable beds, to determine whether or not they need water. And if so, how much. And like I'm doing that. And like, I don't know. And then this year, like we've abandoned that and we're just watering like we had the previous years, and things are going better this year than they did last year, but still not nearly as well as they did the first time around. So I don't know what's going on. I don't get it.
I don't understand. We're going to have to have a McDonald's franchise owner and a gardener on as guests.
Yes.
Because that's where we are.
Speaking of watering, I just realized I may have left the hose on when trying to fill up the pool a little more. So I just texted Sherry.
Okay, so I have one. Let me paint a little picture, because here's what I think people are thinking, and then I'll tell you what I think is happening. So I don't know if you guys ever did any sort of piñata or anything. Ever had one of those at a party?
Yeah.
I've never have, but I feel like, you know, you do the blindfold thing, you spin them around, you get the person dizzy, and then they swing the bat, you know, and they're all over the place. When people say, I don't have a sense of direction, I imagine that they're a child who has a blindfold on and has just been spun around in circles a bunch of times when they say that. But then what happens is you'll be somewhere and you'll leave and take one right, and you're like, hey, where's, you know, do you see the thing, or where do we go next from here? What are we doing? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't have a sense of direction. I'm like, we've taken one right. Like we've turned one time away from the place, or we haven't even turned. We've driven 2 minutes down the same road where we just left. I feel like they're the first one instantaneously. It's like the car, turn on the car, lost. They haven't even pulled away. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand how people say they don't have a sense of direction. I genuinely don't know what's going on in their mind or what they mean by that. Like, if I'm going to a place that's close, I'm not talking about if you've never been somewhere at all before and you're driving around Atlanta or something and you're lost.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you live in, a general area, we all live around Columbus. I don't know most of my way around Columbus, but I know well enough that if I see a sign for 71 or 270 the outer belt or something like that, I can go, okay, I have an idea where I am now.
Yeah.
Just a couple major roads. And then there are people that are just like instantly lost as soon as you get away from anything. Mm-hmm. I don't relate to it at all. And I really, truly want to understand if there's somebody listening that experiences that, like you're in the car with somebody, they turn the car on, you instantly feel lost. You haven't left your driveway, but you feel lost.
Maybe it's kind of weird thing about how engines work.
Maybe they're sitting there thinking about how the engines work and then lose sense of where they are.
As in like that's how engines work. They suck direction out of people.
Maybe.
And you're resistant to it.
I wouldn't know either because I don't know how engines work.
Did you get some kind of vaccine?
Maybe that's the 5G upgrade.
Maybe that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the vaccines.
Yep, it could be. I don't know. So if anyone has that experience where they feel like I'm instantly lost as soon as I get in the car, leave us a voicemail.
Well, Amy gets lost in her basement.
I was just about to bring that up. It happened today.
So have you ever talked through that experience from her point of view? Like, okay, walk downstairs. Do you still know where you are? And I this isn't knocking anybody because a lot of people do this, so I'm not being critical. Okay, if you walk downstairs, do you know where you are? If you take 10 steps, do you still know where you are?
Yeah.
Like if you were in the kitchen before you came downstairs and you turned left, where would you be if you were upstairs and you turned left out of the kitchen?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. But that kind of stuff. I don't know. Have you ever had that conversation?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I've tried to walk her through sometimes. So sometimes I'll play this game. Like we'll just be like in our bedroom at night and,
You guys play weird games in your bedroom.
me too. And I'll be like, okay, so what's directly underneath us right now? And, as if it changes. And she won't know. And so I've tried to like explain, walk through like okay, so pretend like you're walking down our stairs. There's a landing and you turn right. You keep going down the stairs. What direction are you facing? And the answer is you're facing the front door. Okay, cool. Now, if you're facing the front door, right in front of the front door, then backtrack your steps and what's above you. Do you know what's above you then at that point? And at that point she does not she doesn't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes she does. She has gotten better. But just today we were in the basement and there was a spot on the drop ceiling trying to figure out what was directly above that. She could not figure out what we were under.
Yeah.
What room we were under even, much less like this is where there's a china cabinet right above this spot. Was the answer, but she didn't even know what room. She didn't even know that we were under the dining room.
Yeah. I don't know. And I would love to hear, I really do want people to like leave us a voicemail or something on feeling instantly lost, or terrible at directions is probably another way. If you're really bad, like you have to have turn by turn, otherwise you'll get lost in your own neighborhood. Like there are people who use GPS in their own neighborhood, like for simple stuff, to go to the grocery store, to go to somebody's house that they've been to 5 or 6 times before. I want to genuinely know what's going through that person's head when that happens.
I think what they mean is after a couple unfamiliar turns or on a road that curves at all in an unfamiliar area, and you ask me where's north, if the sun isn't out, they don't know. That's what I think they mean when they say that.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I think some
That's
people
very
mean
likely.
that, but
It's very likely that it's the most innocent and understandable version of what I'm imagining.
yeah.
But I still would love to know.
Dylan's like ignition. Oh,
Yeah, basically.
Brian Regan. Oh,
I don't know how to get to the end of my driveway.
oh, which way's which?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Anyways, that was one of mine.
Oh man.
Kendall, you said something about muddy shoes earlier.
I did.
I want to know what this one is.
Well, this is okay. So I don't understand how to cleanly take muddy shoes off. So if
Burn
I'm out, burn them.
Buy new ones.
I've been out gardening, right? And then my shoes are muddy. I go into the garage and I'm not going to bring my shoes into the house with me. So I need to take them off at the mat in the garage. Is there a way to do this without getting your socks dirty? Am I, so I'm thinking like, I take a shoe off and I set it down. What do I do with the foot that I just took the shoe off of? Where do I put that foot?
Jetpack.
I think what you do is you stand at your front door and turn away from the front door.
Sit down.
No.
Oh.
You kick as hard as you can into the air until one of them flips off. And then as you're falling backwards, you kick with the other foot until that one flies off.
I'm wondering if there's just people with like really good balance or just aren't nearly as top heavy as I am, because like taking the first shoe off is not a problem. What becomes a problem for me is, what do I do with my foot now that the shoe's not on it? And then, because I need to stabilize myself somehow to get the second shoe off. And I can't do the like step on the heel and walk out thing. I get that. I'm fine with that. But like, if I don't have a chair next to me to sit down so I can like throw my ankle up onto my knee and take that second shoe off, like how do people do this?
I think most people make the sacrifice play with one of their socks.
Is that what you do?
You take the first, yeah. I take my, if I'm doing yard work and I have my grassy, muddy shoes on or whatever, usually not muddy, I stand on my front porch and I take one shoe off and I let that sock hit the concrete, the steps or whatever. and I just stand out, even if it's wet. It's fine. I mean, the socks are dirty anyways. And then I take the other one off and step in with that one. And then I grab the shoes and step in with the one that's now been on the dirty concrete. But it's like, how dirty is it?
Well, so if I'm like treating my lawn and I don't want to track chemicals onto my floor.
Yeah. You need to use less harsh chemicals.
I missed your setup because I was making sure my pool wasn't overflowing.
Yeah.
Why aren't you using your hands?
Well, I could use my hands, but I mean, I can't like stand up. If I have a chair next to me, I suppose I could handle it that way, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to step on a sock outside.
Yeah. So the original question, the first question was, I take a shoe off.
Yeah.
Where do I put the foot that I just took a shoe off of? What do I do with that foot?
Which sock will be Tony Stark and do a snap and sacrifice
take one
himself?
for the team.
Take one for the team.
You can't face the opposite way of your front door and sit down?
Sit down on what? Just on the ground?
Stoop?
On the doorway.
Step?
You sit on the doorway. Most people have a step up into the doorway.
I do, but I mean, but still, like I take that. I still have a problem of what do I do with my feet? If I'm sitting on a stoop, my feet are in front of me.
Right.
Right. Then now
Usually,
the ground in front of the stoop has the dirtiness about it. So I would have to take. Do you take your shoe off and then you have to like turn 180 degrees?
Here's what we need: we need a mid bit of this. Of Amy filming you, and you don't even have to have actual muddy shoes.
What I do is what Dylan just said. I have a sacrificial foot.
Yeah, I just imagine Kendall before he goes outside doing pre-planning, and he's standing on the doorstep going, "Won't happen, can't happen, no way to do it. I don't know how to do it. Can't do it today. It's too muddy. Gonna have to wait for a drier day."
What's the guy to do?
All I'm saying is I can't take off dirty shoes without getting at least one of my feet messed up, like it, or tainted in some way. Like maybe it's not as muddy as the shoes were, but I'm still like getting the bottom of a sock dirty when I take off dirty shoes. And
yeah, I use my oldest socks and oldest shoes to do yard work anyways. So I don't really care if the oldest sock that I only wear to do yard work gets kind of dirty, and then I take it off when I get inside and throw it in the hamper.
Yeah. So that's your answer.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Your answer is I don't take them off effectively enough that I don't have a sacrificial sock. I just don't worry about the sacrificial sock.
The sacrificial.
There's no other way to describe it. One of them has to be Tony Stark.
Corey seems to think that there's an obvious way to not have to worry about having a sacrificial sock.
This is why I need a visual. I need a video of you, of your predicament, so I can do a play-by-play breakdown.
Yeah.
And go, see, right there, you could have just stepped around the muddy footprint.
So, but you don't have a problem with this?
I don't think.
You don't think so? No, it sounds like you don't. And I just want to, like, there's got to be a technique.
Oh, this is awesome.
I think you belly flop onto your belly in the doorway, and then you flail your legs about until all socks and shoes come off outside. You leave them there, regardless of mud or water content. You go shower, put on clean clothes, clean shoes, go back out, pick them up with your hands, take them inside, then wash your hands.
I just imagine.
I want to imagine you on your belly with your legs flailing outside your door until your neighbor
for somebody to walk by.
Until you see little legs flailing until your socks and shoes fly off outside.
See, I'm imagining not until they fly off. I'm just imagining a side view from Kendall's porch and just his legs, and he's going, "Amy! Joel! Anybody!
No.
Come take my shoes and socks off."
No,
I've committed to belly position.
No, I do. I end up with a dirty sock when I come in.
So for me, like my socks already have grass up around the edges that stick over the shoe. I don't care if I'm stepping on the concrete a little bit. So that's me. That's what I got.
That's funny. This has been really fun. I'm really glad we did this.
Oh, did we hit record? I thought this was the pre-party.
So
Well, that was our introduction.
yeah, so this is more of a topical episode. Sometimes we just go around the horn and see who has updates. Sometimes we cover a topic and weigh in on our thoughts on things, and this has been one of those. Sometimes we have guests. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do tune in every Wednesday for our new episodes. I just want to thank Artius Man for the affiliate relationship we have. If you go to their website, www.artiusman, that's ARTIUSMAN.com, fill your cart with men's grooming products, balms and lotions and all kinds of good things, shampoos and candles, and use promo code THEMIDDLE, that's all caps, THEMIDDLE at checkout to get a big discount off your first order. That helps them. That helps us. We'd really appreciate it. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, the only ask that I have since spending hundreds of dollars at Artius Man should just be implied is if you enjoy our podcast, any past episodes or any episodes in the future, the best thing that we can that you can do for us and that we can ask of you is to send a link to your favorite episodes to friends that you think might enjoy it. Word of mouth and referrals mean a ton to us. We sincerely appreciate everyone who listens and your willingness to pass along your favorite shows to others you think will enjoy.
And this might be one of them. We'd love to hear from you. Do you have things that you just don't understand? We have a voicemail. The phone number is in the description below, and we would love to hear from you. And maybe this is a good catalyst for conversation with your friends and family. Kendall, anything from you, sir?
Nope.
We out.